Hello and welcome everyone. This is Nitesh Mishra from Federation of Indian Export Organizations, popularly known as FIO, India's apex trade promotion organization. And you are listening to the Voice of Exports, India's first exclusive podcast for EXIM community. On this podcast, we bring top performers from the sector who not only inspire but also reinvigorate among you to become one of them. Welcome to another episode of Voice of Exports, India's first audio podcast started by FIO for its member exporters. Today we have in our program Mr. Vicky Dodani, who is the co-founder of Agrizy, India's leading agri-food and wellness CDMO, which was founded in 2021. Mr. Dodani, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot, sir, for having me here. It's a privilege to be part of this show.
So to start with, sir, can you please elaborate on the company and what does it do?
Sure. So the name of the company is Agrizy. We are, as you rightly said, we are a tech-first CDMO for food and beverages and wellness spaces. So to simplify this further, if any brand wants to launch a new product or they want to launch a new product category, we work very closely with these brands, their new product development team, their R&D team to first actually come up with the new product ideas, which is the new product development. Once we have some kind of alignment with the brands, we do the R&D and formulations in our own R&D labs for those products. And once there is a complete alignment on the products, we scale the manufacturing within our network of food and beverage and wellness processors. Eventually, we give the final products from the market insight to the final product. We manage the entire supply chain, product packaged in their labels, and we supply these products to the brands so that their branding, marketing, and distribution, while Agrizy manages their end-to-end back-end supply chain, becoming their catalyst for new product development and distribution.
Mr. Dodani, you have been you have been partnering with 350 plus global and domestic brands and have been exporting to 20 plus countries across Europe, North America, Middle East, and Asia. How have you seen the market as such in recent times, looking at the current scenario of international trade?
Sure. So I think the reason why we are focusing on the overall CDMO space, we're trying to build something in this space. The genesis was that what happened, let's say, in pharmaceutical, in apparel, and more recently in consumer electronics, that India appeared on the manufacturing global map. We want to do something similar for F&B and wellness, and we think this is the right time. We have all the right resources. If you look at it, India is among the top 5 producers for most of the agri-based products. A lot of MSME processing facilities in the country are underutilized. So what essentially Agrizy is trying to do is meet the global demand of F&B and wellness brands. Trying to utilize the underutilized capacities of MSME processors, and at the same time, with the help of farmers, grow what is needed by the customers in the global markets.
Talking directly about the current challenges you have faced across. In fact, you have come across during recent times as with regard to the tariff war, as with regard to the supply chain disruptions. Has it impacted your sector or your company or your company's business in any way?
So I will definitely. I think these are some global phenomena which have definitely affected overall the F&B and wellness space in the country, and at the same time it has affected Agrizy as well. I'll probably pick up a couple of them and try to share our views on that. So if I talk about, let's say, the tariff, right? So predominantly some of the products that we deal in, including pickled gherkins, jalapenos, all of the pickled products, processed fruits and vegetables. For all these products, US was one of the major consumption hubs. So of all the exports that used to happen for these products, about 20 to 25% is actually contributed by US, right? So because of the tariff, the overall cost of supplying these products to these countries have increased, it has resulted into adverse impact for the industry and for Agrizy. The first one is that because the prices, if at all, let's say we want to still supply to US, the buyers have actually asked Agrizy and some of the suppliers here in the country to actually bear some part of the tariff. Which means reduce the cost or the price at which we are supplying to these international buyers, right? International demand. So that, of course, is one impact where the margins have definitely been affected. The second important thing is because of the price reduction in the US market, some of the other customers in the different geographies, be it Europe, Asia Pacific, they are also asking for a similar kind of discount. So there is a mismatch in the supply and demand, and which have overall impacted the supply is more than demand now, given the tariffs. So it has resulted in margins reducing and definitely affecting the exports of some of these products. So
talking about the global supply chain disruptions, the recent war in the Gulf, and earlier the war between Russia and Ukraine, which is still continuing, has they impacted the business as such?
Definitely. I think this is another, I would say, focal point for us to discuss, which is one, because of the war, what happens is that at least when the initial days, the first weeks of, I would say, March, there was a definite chaos. All our shipments, wherever we are doing import and exports, they were actually affected by the availability, or I would say non-availability of the vessels, right? That is one thing. Second is whatever vessels or containers availability was there, the overall freight increased significantly for those, right? Another impact here is because of the war is in the increase in the insurance cost for this freight, right? So if we talk about the overall CIF price, right? CIF delivery price for us, those have increased, and which has actually resulted in the overall business also getting affected significantly. So we could have grown much faster, but I think because of these, I would say some of these disruptions, the growth has not been as much as we had expected.
I talked about India's FTAs, which India has signed in recent times, 9 of them. The most recent one, which has come into force from 15th of July 2026, is the India-UK CETA. So how do you see this agreement between India and UK for businesses in India to grow?
Sure. So I think definite right step in the direction of what we are trying to build, right? So definitely the India-UK FTA has a very positive news for overall F&B and wellness space, right? See, I think the way it works is that some of these FTAs are actually giving Indian exporters a global forum, right, where we can all think about growing our exports, right? And definitely whatever the government is doing in terms of FTAs, and as you rightly mentioned, the 9 of them in very recent times, is going to have a positive impact on not just for Agrizy but for the overall industry.
When you talk about your sector, starting from COVID times till the recent disruptions which has happened, which is with regard to the Gulf War between US, Israel and Iran, the challenges which you have come across and which you would like to, in fact, portray it to all those new and budding exporters who want to come into this field of exports, and especially in your sector, how do you portray them to them and let them know about what lessons have you learned and what have you done to overcome all those challenges?
I think as far as our industry is concerned, what we have seen is that India does not have a very strong image in terms of the global buyers in terms of quality, I would say, right? So as I said, we have great availability of raw materials, processing facilities are available. It's all about meeting the demand of the customers, ensuring that you are producing products which are as per their requirements. So I think we have learned 3 major lessons here. One is that quality is very important, right? So which is where we have to improve overall as a country, portray the right image for the products produced here in India. Second important learning for us would be the customization, right? Not every customer is the same. Everyone has a different requirement. Their use cases are different. How do we actually, customize the products for these requirements and, deliver to them, right?
True.
And third thing, which is also, I think, equally important, is on the serviceability, right? So even if you do great customization, even if your quality is good, but if you're not able to meet the commitments you have given in terms of, on time in full deliveries, right? The customers will not value that. So these are the three, I think, broad learnings. If we do it right, if we do it consistently, overall export is going to increase for us.
I would not like to leave you before asking this question, in fact. This question relates to FIO services in terms of the kind of services which we provide from FIO's side.
Yeah. No, I think FIO is doing really great, right? It's actually supporting all the exporters overall in terms of, growing the business. And I think the thing that I keep saying is that for all international markets, we are not eating pie of some other Indian business. We are actually growing the pie, right? And that's where I think FIO also is doing a great job in terms of, matchmaking the exporter and importer and providing all the services which can help all the exporters. I think some of the things that we like a lot here would be all the webinars and, a knowledge session that are being held by FIO, right? The international exhibitions, and we are going to be part of one of them. All credit to FIO for enabling that for us, right? All the B2B buyer-seller meetings, which we also want to be part of in the coming season, right? And yeah, I think not everyone can afford it, so all the discounts and preferential participation fees provided by FIO are helping, definitely helping exporters like us, to grow our businesses.
When you talk about the food, wellness and beverages segment, and India is one of the leading exporter of these products. So how do you see India's position or in the global market in terms of supplies, in terms of whatever demand the customers have in the international market?
Sure. I think what has happened over the time, and I think it's something that we have been hearing from some of the export buyers of international markets for Agrizy, is that they look at China plus one diversification, right?
Right.
And as I said, right, the imagery is something that has to be changed for Indian products. Once we are able to do it, we are definitely a China plus one diversification for a lot of buyers. We have actually, we have been able to displace Chinese products for some of the some of the customers that we are serving. So definitely, I think it's a growing space. We also understand that, with the, let's say, help of, all the things that government is doing, some of the non-profits, some of the, I would say agencies like FIO are doing, there is definitely product availability, processing facility availability, all of that is there. All we need to do is get the demand, and India is definitely going to appear for, F&B and wellness manufacturing global map.
When you talk about wellness, I would not like to leave aside Ayurveda and Ayush, which is very, very important here in India. How do you see India's Ayurveda product and Ayush products doing or going to do in the coming 10 years from now?
So I would say there are, two elements to this, to be very honest, right? So first is that some of the products that we have already, we have understood the applicability of some of these products, right? Their medicinal effects, like we keep saying this curcumin from turmeric or ashwagandha plant extract, right? Some of these products have got their, I would say, due, whatever the, basically the good credit for all the medicinal properties that the products have. There is more research possible for these products, and this is where, we also do a lot of ingredients R&D. Some of the things would be, how do we even look at utilizing more of curcumin? What can we do more with turmeric, right?
Okay.
So that is one element. The second, and I think more unexploited charter here is that a lot of these products have not even been explored yet, right? There is so much of wealth in our forest, in our agri space, right? For which a lot of R&D is still needed, right? And if we do that right, like I'm very sure that we will be able to reap the benefits or the treasure which is already stored in our agri and forest space.
When you talk about R&D, what support do you want from the government side, and what should the industry and trade do to further facilitate it?
Sure. I think, I understand that a lot of work is being done from the government side to subsidize the R&D, efforts being put. I think one of the major challenge here is that the awareness about these initiatives, right?
Okay.
So that is where I think I would, strongly urge, some support wherever possible in terms of increasing the awareness of these schemes, right? What all can be, done, like with the help of R&D. How do we get the government support which is already there on the paper? How do we realize that, I would say the overall schemes and, reap the benefits of the schemes which are already created by the government?
Okay. One last question before I leave you is about the GI products. We already have around more than 375 GI products across India, which has been given GI tag by the government of India. So how do you see the international marketing being done for GI products, and how GI products can be well suited for the international market? And do you see any further kind of boost needed for promoting GI products from India?
Sure. So I would say there are two types of consumers for GI, right? One is, of course, Indians who know the importance or who know the significance of those products coming from the GI tag locations, right?
Okay.
They would definitely know this. And, I'm talking about Indian diaspora residing somewhere outside India, right? Yes. So they know it. It's all about, again, creating the awareness. And that's what we also try to do. Some of the buyers that we are supplying to, we tell them the importance, and we just, convince them to basically use more of the marketing material on awareness, on, communicating the right message to, so that's the first, I would say, type of consumers that we're talking about. The second is where some of the people who don't know about this, and I think it will take a lot of efforts for someone, let's say, who is from China to know that there is one very good product being grown in Bihar, right?
Okay.
So that will take a lot of time, but I think the first or low-hanging fruit is to, for all of us, is to, educate the customers and they know about the product. It's all about creating that awareness.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dodani, for being so insightful and being so candid in your approach while answering all my questions. And thank you once again for being part of this Voice of Export podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot for giving us this opportunity. And as I said, we are greatly being benefited by FIO, and we, thank you for doing all the great work that you're doing. And we continue to be part of, being together and growing the Indian exports overall together. Voice of Exports podcast by FIO aims to provide important information and views on foreign trade, especially on exports, which will help both Indian exporters and importers. Any statements made by an exporter, importer, or an importing company in this podcast as guests reflect the views and opinions of that individual or the company. This podcast does not constitute an endorsement by the FIO of the individual or the company, his or her or its employer or affiliated entity. The specific information or views provided, resources mentioned, or products or services endorsed or offered by that individual or the company, his or her or its employer or affiliated entity. FIO assumes no responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, or timelines of the information provided by the guest or the company in this podcast, or for the decisions made and reliance on any information provided by the guest or the company in this podcast. We thank you for listening to this episode of Voice of Exports podcast service brought to you by the FIO. For more information on how you can start exporting, please visit our website www.fio.org.